Legends, we are heading into round 10, and I just want to give you the easiest, most simplest buy planning tool that you can have here, and that's this video. We're going to go through all the different players, obviously, and my best selections. So in that last video with Mark, it was a lot of what he was talking about, his selections there. We also have Scoop's amazing buy planning videos on his YouTube channel, Scoop de Fuego, which I'll link in the description as well, guys. Very much goes in depth, but I know a lot of you guys don't want to go into as much detail as those guys. If you want to, awesome, that is there. This one's going to be a lot more simple for you guys, and I'm going to tell you the guys that are going to be playing early. I'm going to be telling you the guys that play the majority of games across the buy period, and then potentially some Origin guys you might want to avoid but pick up at some point, and then give you my best overall selections for the entirety of the season. And what that really means is getting towards that back end, so around 19, 20, 21, and creating your final best 17 to 19 there. So let's get into this straight away, and these are my best picks, and we're going to start with players who play in 13 and 14 but miss 16, and that's except for Robson here who misses 15. He has one of the better buy schedules across the entirety of that first sort of all the way through till 19 is the Cowboys, and then everyone else is very different. So Robson there, he is that best hooking player to have in your squad because he will cover a majority of those weeks. He misses 15, so as long as you have some cover in 15 there in the hooking position, then you will be fine for that round. Every other round up until their next buy at the end of the buy period, which is a long way away and something that a lot of you guys that aren't thinking that far ahead don't have to worry about until then, which is great. So if you're picking a lot of guys from this section just to start it off, you will have to make a bunch of trades come round 16. So that's where a lot of the other buy planners are great because it shows you who you can pick in this first section to play the first couple, and then you compare them with some guys from the sections that I'm going to speak about below. So take this as you will. If you have a lot of trades remaining and you want to go really hard at 13 and 14, then all of these guys in this section are going to be great. And then you could then trade a few of them off to guys that are going to be playing through the middle part and towards the end as well. So as I said, just play this as you will, and you can sort of mix and match with the guys you're currently holding and then the guys you're looking to pick up. And I've got a little bit of just a thought that I'll expand on for each of these people, and the best rating there is good. So even guys like Nico Hines and Cleary are sitting in that good range because I don't think there's anyone that's a clear must-have. I was thinking of Hinesy, putting him in the amazing bracket, but yeah, you can take that as you will. If he plays Origin, he misses 4 games over the Origin period, so he can't be in perfect. You know, if he was not missing any games for Origin, likely, obviously he hasn't made the team yet, but likely there, then he would be the best option by far. So Robson, best option in the hooking position. You got Jeremy Marshall-King, I think is just okay. Like, he covers a lot of those rounds. They have their bye in round 16, okay, and they have their bye next week as well. So if you're going to pick him up in round 12, you get him all the way through, 1 game missed in 16, and then they have a bye later in the season. So he'll work. He's, not scoring as well just as Robson, but Robson isn't scoring that great either. So either way, it's going to be fine. If you own him, he's a clear hold. Wade Egan, the other guy who plays those first 2, misses 12. He's a solid one as well, but he's just had too many concussions, and what happens if he gets hit and goes down again? He could be out for a longer period of time, and that's the annoying part there. Let's move to the next section of hookers, and then we'll come back up. And the players who miss 13, but they're good for 3 of the next 4 big rounds. So guys like Tanner Boyd, I've got it as a really good option, but he's got the sad face because I don't own him, and that is completely fine. Unfortunately, he's very expensive now. So they miss 13 and 16, but he does play 14, 17, and also 19 and 20. So that's 4 of the next 5 big ones. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. At a minimum, they play 3 of the next 4 big ones. Whether they miss 14, whether they miss 16, they miss 17, any of those. So, Dogs, Sharks, they miss 17, so 13 and 17. Whereas, guys like Manly and stuff will miss 14 and then play a majority of others there. So that's that in that one. Okay, so options. Boyd, he's a pretty solid one. I think he's probably second best option at the moment to hold through the buy period if you own him, and that would probably Grant in the 3rd position there. So that's where we're at with those guys there. The only one I didn't pop in here actually should have been Smith. I'm not sure if I put him in the mids, but we'll slot him in there as well in that position there as Smithy Boy, who misses 13 and 19, but plays all the ones in between that 14, 16, and 17. And he's an okay one, guys. So he's a good one to pair with Robson because he does play in 16. You can slot him in the mids if you need to, in 14, in 16 if you have another hooker, in 17 as well. You can slot in the mids, all the hooking positions. So very important player there, I think. If he can stay on the park, the poor fella just keeps getting injured. So that's those two. You got Reed Marnie, who I think is okay, very up and down with the scoring, but misses 13-17. So you get him for 2 of those big buy rounds, whether you select him in 14. So you get, a bunch of extra games there. That's completely up to you on that one. Blake, that is, I think he's an average buy. I think Marnie's better, but yeah, that's where we're at with that section there. Mids, we got McInnes. I think he's an okay hold. You're looking at, sorry, I should continue with the hooks, sorry. And we don't have anyone from the Eels, unfortunately, that play all the major buy rounds, so we'll skip that one. And then we've got the Origin guys. So it's Grant, Cook, and then Appy. So Grant, I think, is just a good option overall. He's the best scorer in the hooking position, so you can never go wrong with him on that one. You've got Cook there. I think is okay. The best thing about him is that he's dropping a fair bit in price. And if he happens to miss Origin, then he's going to be a must-have, I think, in round 13, just because he's going to be so cheap and you can get him, at that price, but obviously he could come out and score super well. And then Appy, I think he's okay. He's gone up a fair bit in price over the last few weeks, so it's a little bit of a painful one there. And let's move on to my best players to have overall in each position. So, because Robson has the best schedule here, even though he isn't scoring the best, I think he's number 1. Boydie number 2, just because he's scoring so well and he's cheaper than the rest. Then you've got Harry Grant, the 3rd best, and then JMK, because he plays so many games over the Origin period, and then Damien Cook. And obviously he would go up this list if he happened to not play Origin. So that's where we're at in the hooking position. It's obviously a pretty tough one at the moment. It's not one we want to spend a lot of time on just because there's not a lot of great options. Obviously, Smith will be in there to cover as well during the buy period. He'll be about that 4 or 5, 6 range as well. So that's probably all we want to talk about in the hooking position. And we'll spend a bit more time on the next best. So the mid section, we've got JDB up there. This is not in any particular order, guys. Obviously, it's usually from the more expensive guys down to the cheaper guys in the most part. But I'll kind of just give you my summation on them. A bunch of you guys will own these players, and a bunch of you will be looking at them. JDB would have been, in the clear, almost great category if he stayed at 13, but I just think he plays 65 or so minutes, and that probably gets him a 50 to 55 type of scoring output there. I don't think his role changes too much. It just might mean that, Bird's the 80-minute guy, and depending how many minutes like Jaden Sewer and these type of guys get, as to how many minutes JDB will play. But I still think he'll be able to, make 50 or so K and do a good job for you, playing in 13 and 14, missing 16 there. So JDB is still a good option, but I think Horsburgh, that's a little bit of a cheaper price, could probably be a slightly better option at this point, 40, 50K cheaper, and potentially a little bit more upside with the minutes now. If JDB was at 13, I'd have him ahead, but I think Horsburgh is slightly ahead at this point. And if you can get him in, you probably don't straight swap him for like Preston or something like that, but I think we'll talk about these guys more when Scoop comes on the channel. These are more, we'll talk about in that video more around the buys for this week. And then this video is a little bit more like what guys would you want over the buy period and, setting up the rest of your team. And I think Horsburgh and JDB are both going to be great in a pretty tough mid position with, a few of the good, the best guys in the position all playing Origin. So that's that with those two, both good options there. Tohu Harris, so he's going to be really good to buy in 13, I'd say. What that means is you probably get a game or 2 out of him before then. Hopefully, he plays this week. If he does, he's going to lose a bit of cash and potentially next week as well in 11. And then you can pick him up in 13 at a little bit of a discount. And hopefully he's got a couple of runs under his belt and his knee's feeling okay. That's the main worry, is just that injury. And we need to get him back to big minutes so he can score really, really well. AFB, with Harris coming back, I think he's an average buy. Again, you wouldn't really be looking to pick him up now with their buy in 13, and you're probably holding Ford, potentially holding Johnson, and maybe one other Warrior would have been like C&K, but probably not anymore. But AFB, I think he's just an average buy at this point, not one on my radar. Spoke about Horsburgh, I think he's the better pick over Tapani. If you own Tapani now, it's a hard one. Do you hold him? Do you not? I can understand why you wouldn't, but you really need to make a really good flip from him to make it worthwhile. If you're just going a bit sideways that someone's going to score about a 50 mark, then I don't think it's really worth the trade. But that's where we're at with him. He could be an option at some point, guys. He plays all the way through to 16, so maybe if he comes good over the next week or two, then we probably select him in round 12 or something. So that's something to think about. David Tola, so he's really cheap, guys, and he's going to be an okay pickup for sure. But I think from round 11 or 12. So we'll see how he goes this week. If he gets through unscathed, if he scores pretty well, then you can wheels up and get him next week. And if he doesn't go that well, then potentially round 12 we get a couple of looks at him and we can go from there. But he's really cheap and one of those mid-range, lower, cheapy kind of guys in the mids, it has the high potential if he can get back to full health, that's for sure. And 40, just a very good dual position edge, edge and mid dual hold, because he's going to be able to cover both positions there through 13, 14, which is going to be great. It's going to be very helpful for your side. So as you know, guys, 13 players you can play, and they all have to be in the starting side. So you have to move players around if you need to. Some of the centers can come up to edge, Birdie, Lemuelu, those type of guys. So something for you to think about in your squad for sure. Let's go to the edge position now. And Frizzell, he's an interesting one. He misses 14, right? So he plays 13, misses 14, but is back in the game for 16, 17. And he's a really solid one, obviously. I think he's a good pick. He's pretty expensive now. He's priced a little bit over 50, but he's going to be one of those guys in the edge position, which you can see here that there's not many that play 13 and 14. We've got guys like Hopgood, which we'll speak about in a sec. Actually, I keep forgetting to go down to the mids, so we'll work it out. First time doing this type of video, guys, and with how the new buy schedule is set up. So bear with me here. Okay, let's go back to the mids there. So players who miss 13, but they're good for the next 3 of the next 4 big rounds. So McInnes, I think he's a okay hold, to be honest with you. Not super special if we're looking at McInnes. I have him at the moment, and if I could move him on, I will, but hopefully he still gets about 48 to 52 minutes, something like that, off the bench with the players that they're starting with Royce Hunt and Oregon Kafusi there. Fodawaker, I think he's a good pickup, especially for the head-to-head guys. Misses 13 and 16, but apart from that, he's playing big minutes and will do a great job for your side. Also think Nelson Asofa Solomona is another solid pickup as well. He's a good one to have in your side. He's scoring really, really well, getting involved, terrorizing teams, to be honest, when he comes on. So he's only really played, 3 games this year, and all of them have been really, really good scoring games. So if he can keep that up his rampaging best, then I think it's a good time for him. He just signed a new contract, which is also good news, I think. And yeah, he's a solid one. He's pretty expensive though, so if you want someone like him, there are better options up above that play 13, to be honest. But yeah, if you're a head-to-head guy, I think Nas is a good selection. Max and Josh King, both okay, guys. If you're holding on to him, that's fine. I wouldn't be buying them. Fisher Harris, I think he's an okay buy as well, eventually. So yeah, they're missing 13 and 19. He could be like around 14 buy. If his minutes are up, he's back from injury. That's kind of the thing. He's come back from injury. Not really super exciting to play someone like Fisher Harris and pick him up. Coming back from injury, you want him sort of worked up and into it. But maybe with the rest that he's ready to go for big minutes over that time. With the guys like Isaiah Yeo obviously not being there, and they need some bigger minute guys in that team. So that's that. Daniel Paseka. He's a good selection as well. So with Jake Trbojevic out, Paseka's been playing really well over the last 3 or 4 weeks anyway. And I think minutes-wise, he probably gets another 5 or so, because he's that workhorse, type of guy that's been able to get some tackle breaks and offloads as well. So Paseka, one of those guys, probably has another 4 or 5 points on his current average, and he's at an okay price for sure. But again, misses 14 in this one, which is not super ideal, obviously. Okay, Clemmer, he's also a solid pick, guys. In this one, getting cheaper, but we need to see some more minutes from him. That's the big thing. For Clem, at the moment, it's just you need to see an improvement in min before you look at picking him up. Okay, in the mid position for all the major buyers, we have Matto. I think he's a good selection, guys. Also Hopgood. So either one of those, Hopgood, Matto. The bench this week's a little bit weird. So minutes-wise, what's exactly going to happen? I'm not exactly sure, but we will find out this week. And up to you if you want to wait on them or pick them up now. I think either's fine, but think about Hopgood. He's priced at 50 now. And, do you think that he could exceed that? Sure, he got 86 last week, but I doubt that he has the free reign like he did last week, especially when Matto are going to be taking a little bit more of the runs, especially. And Hopgood has been that way. He hasn't scored very good before that 86. So every chance he just goes back to a 45 or 55, somewhere in that range, and he doesn't really damage you too much for not picking him up. So I definitely think you look at him and look at Matto this week. Matto coming back from the flu off the bench. I don't think the bench thing changes much for him, but you can decide on that one. Greg, so he's an okay buy, guys. So he's obviously not too expensive, but I think his minutes drop a little bit from that 40 odd. Probably it's like a 33 in this one. In the mids, you got Haas is obviously good. Yo, good. Both at a very similar level, both scoring almost the same. They're great pickups, sort of at any point. Like if you can get after one of their Origin guys, if they come playing in 14, then they only miss 2 from there. That's good news, obviously. Carrigan, solid one, and Cotter, a solid one there as well. And then you look to your best options throughout the entirety of the year. I think Haas is just clearly on top, then Yo. Then you've got Madison and Hopgood, very similar in that one. Obviously, Hopgood with the duel is helpful. Then I think it's guys like Tohu Harris, I think will exceed a bunch of these guys longer term. Obviously, shorter term, probably Horsburgh and JDB are the best ones, but those two are 6 and 7 in the mids position. So that was good. I like that. The mids position is going to be fun, and obviously some cheaper guys will pop up along the way and stuff like that, which is going to be helpful. But yeah, that's where it's currently at in that one. We spoke about the edges to start. We've got Frizzell, as I said, a good option. Hudson Young plays 13 and 14, getting a little bit more expensive. He was kind of a pickup probably 4 or 5 weeks ago when he had his really poor start and then started improving from there. But he's going to be a solid one, guys, if you want someone at a good price that's going to play those first few games, and then maybe you move him on in 16. Up to you on that one. Harlem Lukey, someone I'm potentially going to pick up this week, just so I can get to Hines. And you want him to get through this week. It's a little bit of a risk grabbing him now, but he also has a lower break even, and sounds like from Peyton said he's going to play a large chunk of the right edge minutes. So he goes straight to Nanai's side, and help. He's going to help out that edge. And I think large chunk will be 65 or so, like he played a couple of weeks ago in that position, which is good. Exactly what you want, and he has that upside, which is good. And he's not up against Joey Manu. He's up against Kiri, which is good. Host, average, hold. That's all you can say with that great host there. Let's go to edges now in the next section, and this one's obviously missing 13 and playing a bunch of the others. So RFM, he's a solid one. His PBM has been really down in a lock position this year, and he had a cracker on the weekend. If Max King is back, I think his minutes drop, RFM, but he's a solid pick. Not a knockout, but definitely a solid one. Papali'i, he's a good pick. Obviously, he's dropping down in price. I think around 14 might be his selection if you're looking at him. Nakora, solid as well. He doesn't play 13 as he didn't score that great on the weekend. He had that knee clash, so hopefully he's fine. But I think around 14 might be a pick if you want him. I think Bateman's a good pick. So once he keeps dropping in cash a little bit, he then would only have to average about 50 for him to be a good buy, and I think he can do that. Another couple of games in the league there on his return, and I think he'll be good. Again, probably a buy in round 14. Him or Papali'i could be a good one there. Wilton, I think, is a good hold, guys. He's done his job, averaging 50. TPJ is average, guys. I think that it's probably worth just trading him on. I think, can't get 18 in like 50 minutes and expect people to hold you, especially when it looks like that. Ugh, yuck. Preston, I think he's a solid hold as well. Hosking, probably a slightly better hold, but he's more expensive, so play whichever one you want for that. Also, Trent Leoro, he's also a solid hold. I have him as a better hold right now than the other two, just because he's going to make a little bit more money, and he's coming off a couple of mid-50s and could do that again, especially after a good rest. Eli Katoa, average hold in this one. I think, with the money that you're making on Leoro or, Preston Hosking doing better than Katoa is at the moment, he can obviously get back to that, but coming off a concussion, a little bit worried about that for sure. Okay, let's move to the edges it's basically the Eels. This is the Eels section. They play all major buys, guys. So they only miss 1 to 2 weeks over that time, depending when you pick them up. So 14 and 18 in that one is the Eels, and that's all I've got in this section. So Sean Lane, I think he's a solid pick, but he has only had 1 good score since returning to the league. Fafita, he's the gun, guys. He's the best player on the edge. It's simple as that. And we look at that here. Fafita number 1, Papali'i number 2. You got Frizzell, Bateman, and Hudson Young. I think they're the best selections in that edge position. Okay, let's move to the halves, and hope you're getting a lot out of this, guys. This is very simple, solid way to go about this. I know a lot of you guys don't spend, if you're watching my videos, thank you so much, but you're not spending a lot of time sort of studying on the side or looking at Excel spreadsheets. And a lot of people are like, whoa, this is a lot. So I hope they're just listening to this, and I'll pop timestamps on this and make it a little bit easier for everyone as well. So thanks for tuning in for this long. I really appreciate it. In the halves position for the guys that play 13 and 14, you've got Johnson. He's a good hold. Not sure if you'd be buying him now. I think you can go for potentially one of the Eels guys, or really no one in here's a clear buy. So Johnson's the best that plays 13 and 14, and might be a captaincy option in 13. Something to think about. But yeah, he's a good one. Reynolds, I think he's okay. Like, he's scoring all right, but there's so many better half scorers at the moment. Walker is an average one, just and now he's gone up so much in price. And spoke about him as a buy probably 6 weeks ago, so it's a bit late now. But he'll play both. Fogarty, I think he's a solid one as well. Thing to note with him is he doesn't have the goal kicking anymore, so that's a bit frustrating. With Croker back in and doing great, so shout out to Croaks there. But Fogs, he's got 3 decent scores out of his last 4. He had some low ones before that, so we saw what he did at the back end of last year. He was averaging over 50 odd and doing a great job. Katoa and Nikorima, I think they're an okay hold. One of them probably you sell next week if you own both. If you own just one of them, maybe you hold, depending how many of those Dolphins guys you have. And if you need to get a decent scorer and you're happy with the money that like Katoa's made, I could potentially see myself trading him to a wing fullback, like a Drinky or something like that next week, or a Totola, something like that for sure. So that's that section there. In the halves, let's move to the next spot. And there's only two guys, Burton and Oloapu, I see as like potential options that are missing in 13 and play the rest of them, apart from 17 for those two guys. Oloapu, better than Burton. I think just his inconsistency and the team not going that great. It's kind of annoying when there's so many good halves. And Oloapu as a potential cash cow could work out great for your side. Obviously, the halves for the Eels, Moses and Brown, they're both good. One's just more expensive than the other and has a little bit more of a ceiling than what Brown does. So that's that. And then we'll move on to the Origin guys. I think that Hines will play Origin 14 most likely, but yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's going to miss 4 games over that Origin period with their buy-in 17. But yeah, I think you need him over the next 3 weeks, likely. Like if you've got a really strong team around it and you can bank on Cleary coming back and doing a great job, and captaining him from this week on, then I think it'll be fine. But otherwise, Hines is a great selection. So is Cleary, so is DCE, so is Munster. All the top guys there. And then you've got Ben Hunt that will play Origin. I think he's okay. I think he's exceeded expectations this year with the missed tackles, and that might come down to earth, but I'm not exactly sure how that will play out, to be honest. I had him last year, and he was a little bit annoying at the start of the year for sure in the head-to-head team. Yeah. Halves position. So top guys, Hines, Cleary, DCE, Munster, Moses and Johnson. I think this will be the top scorers is what I'm playing it. So Moses and Johnson better for the Origin period, but come the end of the season, I think Moses and Johnson will be just below all of those guys, which is completely fair, I believe. 2 sections to go, guys. Center and also the wing fullback. So let's get into that one there. We've got the guys that play 13 and 14, and this might be the easiest section, to be honest. You've got Bird, Lemuelu, which are going to be great playing those first 2 games. You've also got Joey Manu as well, but he misses 13 and he'll be in that next section. But yeah, so many good options and dual position as well, which is great. So Bird and Lem, I think they both need to be in your side. Obviously, Lem's an interesting one because low break even, will make some money, but is he like a 45 scorer long term? Is this just an anomaly? I'm not sure, but he's been great, obviously. Tomoko, he's a good one. Like he's been doing well. He's pretty expensive right now, but he plays both of those, and I think he's better than all of the ones below him. In Aiken, who's been good the last bunch of weeks, but he'll have games where he comes back down to earth if the Dolphins don't happen to score 30 points every week at the moment. Farnworth is okay. Tass is also okay, and Hammer is an okay hold, I think, as well. But obviously covers center and wing fullback, which is great. Let's go to the next section. Obviously, the guys that play the miss 13, but play the others there, or miss one of those first couple. So Gagai misses 14, Talakai misses 13 there as well. So Manu, obviously that best selection in this section here, and I think he's just a buy now. You just need to get him in. He's scoring way too good for a center. Gagai has been great, and I just think he's solid because he's too expensive. If you're expecting him to continue that, then great, he could, but he's definitely one of the best centers at the moment. And Talakai, he's an okay, for a run. Like they've got 3 pretty easy games over the next few weeks, I think, for their standards, and he could score well there. And be solid for you all the way up and play 16, so plays 14, 16, misses 17, so you can make that decision there. And then you've got the best ones that the guys that play all. So Penasini plays all 3 major buys, obviously, in the Eels. And then you go down to the centers in the Origin guys. So likely Campbell Graham, who's a good buy. And then Holmes is a solid one across the season. That's what we're looking at there. And then the best players across the league there, you've got Birdie, Manu, Penasini, then Lem, I would say, as best purchases for now / the rest of the season. Gags, I think, will come back down to earth, and Graham will miss too many games, I think, over that period. So Graham is in number 6 in that one, which is completely fine as a selection there. Okay, let's go back up top and finish off this video. And a big thank you again to everyone who has stuck around and watched this to the end. You're all legends. And I hope this has really helped as a very simple buy planning technique. Wing fullback, so Drinky, solid. He's going to play everything but 15 until the back end, so he's a great one to own. There's not a lot to play both of these 13 and 14, so that's where Walsh is probably a solid hold. And then you've got a Sarko there who's going to be an okay one as well. Just he's so expensive, but he's been scoring really well, so we can't really say much about him. Wing fullbacks in this next section. So these are guys that missed 13 or 14, one of the two, and play 3 of the next 4 after that. And what we're looking at there is Edwards. He's going to be sort of the best selection out of that, along with Miller as the good hold. So those are the 2 guys. Edwards should score the best out of all those. Meany's been great, but he misses 13, so it's a hard one to pick up now. And they have a few tougher games, but that hasn't stopped him too much, I would say. Karaz is okay. Obviously, coming over from injury, you want to see him first. Maybe pick him up in 14 if he drops down a bit. But then again, if he's dropped down a bit, you're probably not that excited to pick him up, especially if the dogs aren't going great. Garrick is losing a lot of cash, and this is so much cheaper than he has been in previous years. So keep him in your mind. But he misses 14, plays 13. Campbell, I've just got him as solid because he's probably going to score well over the next 3, but likely the Brimson is back. So over the bye period, not a great pick. Miller, and then Mulatalo is okay there if you're looking at him and you like him, but he can be a frustrating watch, especially when he, unfortunately, decides not to put the ball over the line before he touches the line. Ugh. The sideline anyway. Gutho is the one from the Eels that's okay if you want to get him. Latrell Mitchell, a great selection, or good selection. I've got it here as he's going to be the best scorer across the year, I think. And then Teddy is a solid one from the Origin guys. And then my best selections from the wing fullback is Mitchell, Dylan Edwards, and then Teddy. So it's an absolute wild one. Obviously, Joe Manu can play in that fullback position, so he would be in there as well if you like. But yeah, that's the video, guys. There's plenty to think about in that section. Obviously, as I said, just merging a few of the different positions together, they all complement each other. So if you've got someone that plays 13 and 14, misses 16, but you have one of those guys that may miss 13, so you have the other couple of guys, or it might be. The best way to look at it is go, if you're in the center position, if you have 3 centers, cool. You have 2 in 13 that play and 1 that doesn't, but that person plays 16 and they definitely play 13. So that's something to think about. Definitely play 14. So 14, 16, and maybe 17 as well. Whereas the guy that plays 13, 14 misses out on 16 or 17, something like that. So they complement each other, and you have at least one of them in there. And then potentially if you get one of those guys all the way through to 16, you can trade one of them to another guy that plays 16 and 19, or 16, 17, 19, or something like that. So they're the simple ways to do it, where you have 3 in each position, 3 in the halves, 4 in the wing fullbacks could work, and then you've got 2 hookers, 4 in the mids, and 3 in the edges, and then you've got 1 or 2 sort of dual position guys. That would be the best way to look at that, and then you can cover everything across the way without spending a hell of a lot of trades. If you want to go launch and win round 13 and 14, then go nuts with all those guys up top, but then you will be trading heavy from round 15, 16, and then similar that in round 19 or so. And then the issue with that, you might have maybe too many guys that are sort of good for the buys, but they're not good for your final team. So that's something to think about as well in this one. But that's my general strategy, is probably mixing and matching a little bit in this one to make sure that you set yourself up for success across the bye schedule. And I wish you all the best of luck across that. Obviously heading into round 10, Magic Round. I can't wait for this one. It's going to be a lot of fun, but this is obviously a little bit more forward thinking. The video with Scoop later today, which I'll post later today, will be really targeting this week and obviously the next few. Whereas this is looking at the entirety of that bye period and guys that you can hold over that time, and then guys that you'd be looking to select. So good luck, guys. See you later.